Fala, meu povo, tudo bem com vocês? E os gringos estão falando bastante sobre a condenação de Carlo Ancelotti lá na Espanha, 1 ano de prisão. Siga aí no que estão falando do treinador da seleção brasileira agora.
It's basically the story I'm telling you that the taxman looked at some of the payments that have been made, payments that should be wages and payments that should be taxed in Spain, and realized that it was a common perception that you could take a percentage of that money and put it somewhere else so you avoid paying taxes.
Well, we have some breaking news over in Spain, where a Spanish court has sentenced Carlo Ancelotti to a 1-year prison term for tax fraud. The Brazilian national team coach and former Real Madrid boss was charged with failing to pay tax on his image rights revenue during his first tenure as Real Madrid manager back in 2014. According to Spanish law, sentences of fewer than 2 years for non-violent crimes rarely require jail time. Prosecutors were seeking a prison term of 4 years and 9 months and fines of more than $3 million. For more on this, we're bringing in our CBS Sports La Liga correspondent, Guillaume Balaguer. Guillaume, thank you so much for joining us. We've seen big names face similar tax evasion charges from Spanish courts before, so how serious is this?
It's part of the same thing. Everybody was doing it because it was kind of allowed, or so they thought. And the taxman has been looking back at how some of the image rights have been paid, which basically tends to be a part, a percentage of the money that has to come in instead of putting it in a Spanish bank account and going through the Spanish taxman. Basically, it just goes to another company away, certainly in a tax haven, and then that's how perhaps both club and the person save money. Actually, it's interesting because in the case of Ancelotti, he was accused of tax fraud in 2 years, 2014 and also 2015, but he's been acquitted from 2015. And also the fine is not as big as it could have been because he actually recognized that it had been a mistake and paid his fine in December last year. But it's all part of a culture that we all know very well of, I tell you what, if we can not pay taxes or not pay as many taxes, that's a good thing. That's a very common perception in Spain. And of course, what Carlo Ancelotti and others can say from that era is that they didn't know what they were doing because the club advised that they did that, and also the tax informant or advisor also told them that that was a good thing to do, and nobody was being caught until they've been caught. Again, there is different variations of that kind of tax saving illegally exercise, because in the case of Xabi Alonso, who was accused of the same things, he was acquitted for the whole process, and basically the judge recognized that he hadn't done anything wrong. In the case of Carlo Ancelotti, there's not only the admission of him that something had been wrong and paying a fine. Now the judge has gone and, as you say, sentenced him to 1 year in prison for tax fraud.
Guillaume, these charges stem from image rights dating back to almost a decade ago. So why now?
It's basically the story I'm telling you that the taxman looked at some of the payments that have been made, payments that should be wages and payments that should be taxed in Spain, and realized that it was a common perception that you could take a percentage of that money and put it somewhere else so you avoid paying taxes. So it doesn't matter. I think there is a limit of how much further you could go backwards, but basically this is part of that period in which the taxman can intervene, and there's been big names affected by it, and it all comes back with the same idea, just the perception that you can get away from not paying taxes. I think everybody's much wiser, and it requires every now and again for the taxman to do a little bit of selective choosing of those that have been frauding taxes, because then everybody realizes that it's not a good thing to do. In fact, I know it shouldn't happen, but I insist it's a cultural thing. In Spain, if you avoid taxes, you're a hero.
Guillaume, real quick, as we talked about at the beginning, lots of people have gone through this over in Spain. Has anyone actually ever faced actual jail time for this?
No, because I think the intention is for the taxman to recover some of the money that they may have been losing. I'm thinking football-wise, no. But I know of famous. I'm thinking particularly of a couple of famous singers that everybody knows, and again they were picked just to be seen to give an example to the rest of the country, and they ended up in prison. Now, this is a long time ago, this is about 30, 40 years ago, but now it's quite clearly the case that a negotiation is preferred to anything else. But of course, don't forget, a year sentence means that remains in your history. So if you commit another crime, maybe next is prison. But I don't know of any of those cases that ended up being to court that did not automatically mean a correction of how taxes are being paid. There was a time, I'm telling you, not only in football, but outside football, all over the place, where companies recommended that employees to create a company or to find all the means to actually reduce the taxes for both sides. So you didn't have to pay so much, but the company didn't have to pay so much. I think the taxman always runs a little bit behind, but when he catches you, obviously punishes you.
Well, Guillaume, thank you so much for joining us as we dive into the breaking news in Spain, where the Spanish court has sentenced Carlo Ancelotti to a one-year prison term for tax fraud. The Brazilian national team coach and former Real Madrid boss was charged with failing to pay taxes on his image rights revenue during his first tenure as Real Madrid manager back in 2014. Now, according to Spanish law, sentences of fewer than 2 years for non-violent crime rarely require jail time. Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo are among the big names to have faced similar.
Então, pessoal, vocês viram aí a TV Americana falando sobre Carlo Ancelotti. Sim, mano, condenado a 1 ano de prisão, mas acho que não vai cumprir porque acho que é réu primário, essas coisas aí, tem umas leis lá na Espanha, tá? Mas já vai ter que pagar uma multa danada e, porra, e tudo isso por sonegar impostos, né? Caramba, agora ele tá aqui no Brasil, vai pagar o que deve lá. E daqui a pouco ele já tá na Seleção Brasileira de novo nas próximas convocações. Só para lembrar, Carlo Ancelotti, hoje treinador da Seleção Brasileira, mas quando teve essa questão de sonegação de imposto, parece que ele treinava ainda o Real Madrid, tá bom? Galera, peço para você se inscrever no nosso canal, deixar o like, peço também que você compartilhe esse vídeo com seus amigos aí. Muito obrigado por tudo, fica com Deus, valeu!